From the CISO Series, it's cybersecurity headlines.
Russian-linked Maradon starts stealing data 30 to 50 minutes after initial compromise. New AI tool Worm GPT allows for sophisticated cyber attacks, and Microsoft is still unsure how hackers stole Azure Active Directory signing keys. These are some of the stories that my colleagues and I have been bringing to you on this week's cybersecurity headlines. And now we get a chance for some insight, opinion, and most definitely some expertise on these stories and more from our guest, Dimitri van Zantvliet, the CISO at Dutch Railways. Dimitri, thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Rich. Honored to be here.
Yeah, I cannot wait to get into the news of the week with you. Before we do so, just have to thank our sponsor for today, Open VPN, secure access and network connectivity reimagined. Join us on YouTube Live. Remember to do so. Go to the web address CISOseries.com in your internet browser of choice. Hit the events dropdown and look for the cybersecurity headlines week in review image. It is the third one down. Just click on it. You can join us and get in on the comments. We love to have them. We've got about 20 minutes, though, so let's jump in. Russian-linked Maradon starts stealing data 30 to 50 minutes after initial compromise. Ukraine's Computer Emergency Response Team is warning that the Russian-linked APT group is able to steal data from victims' networks in less than an hour after initial compromise. The group often uses spear phishing and social engineering emails and messages, things like Telegram, WhatsApp, and Signal, as an initial attack vector, and then using accounts that have been previously compromised. So, Dimitri, in the business of cybersecurity, time is always an issue, not breaking any news there. But does this new development raise the stakes in terms of adding greater power to threat actors, or is that kind of speed after initial compromise something we're already used to?
Well, in fact, I think we immediately added some new paragraphs to our vacancies, our incident responder vacancies. So next to having a CISP certification, you need to run as fast as Usain Bolt. I mean, this is just insane, right? These speeds. So if you also look at, for example, the lightning speed of encryption that Lockbit 2 delivers,
Yeah.
I think it's 266 megabytes a second. It's you have to be really fast in detecting and responding. So it's all about automation, I guess. Perhaps AI in the future, orchestration, and kicking off your playbooks right away. So automation, I think, is the answer here, and more important, perhaps, is encrypting your data so it becomes useless.
Yeah, I'm curious. Does this particular time window, like 30 to 50 minutes, is that we always say security is a cat and mouse game. It's like the oldest metaphor possible. But is this like is this a much faster mouse? Like, does this change the paradigm or anything like that, or is this, I guess, within the bounds of expectation?
Well, you see the speed increasing, so I think it will be increasing over the years to come. So I think it's getting faster and faster.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see if we'll see new speed records going forward. But yeah, between this and ransomware, ain't getting any easier anytime soon. Our next story here: new AI tool Worm GPT allows for sophisticated cyber attack. That's according to findings from SlashNext. Worm GPT has been advertised on underground forums as a way for adversaries to create highly convincing fake emails personalized to a recipient, and thus increasing the chances of a successful attack. SlashNext security researcher Daniel Kelly added in his company's report that threat actors are promoting jailbreaks for ChatGPT, engineering specialized prompts and inputs that are designed to manipulate the tool into generating output that would have involved disclosing sensitive information, producing inappropriate content, executing harmful code. Dimitri, we've seen this around more trivial things like old Windows activation keys or something like that. So it's not surprising to see threat actors with this. But I guess two concerns here. The first being, a well-crafted social engineering and phishing emails. And then the second, being the generation of wholesale malicious code, clearly a challenge for CISOs everywhere. I'm curious, what's your take on this development?
I seriously doubt if this is a big thing already. So we read the news and we saw a lot of clickbait and FUD in all these articles about Worm GPT. But On the other side, it's not a surprise. We expected this to come. There's how many thousands of, if you look at the Hugging Face this morning, 262,000 models. There's 46,500 data sets to train those models. So I think this is a new market for a dark web market, perhaps with rogue data sets to train models to go off rails. Yeah, it's a new business model, probably. Not so worried about crafting the serious phishing mails with AI yet. If you're being spear-phished, it's made with OSINT already. So
Yeah, that doesn't strike that it's changing the game necessarily. And I agree, a lot of the Worm GPT, it was like people knew when they had a good headline, right? It's like we know
exactly,
GPT is going to get the clicks, but yeah, it's the start though of seeing this these large language models just being part of the standard toolkit for threat actors. I think is important to note and to see. I honestly like the creativity. I hate to say that, but like threat actors are nothing if not insanely creative, and this is a tool that breeds creativity. So it will be
yeah, it's insane.
fascinating to see how this develops over time too.
But it's very costly to train a model. So I'm wondering who's able to, which APT has the thousands of NVIDIAs in the cloud to do it.
Well,
So
and especially when we're seeing export restrictions to certain
exactly, yeah.
countries to prevent getting those tools for those
But
purposes.
you want to get some shares of NVIDIA. I think that's a good.
For sure, for sure. All right, our next story here. Microsoft still unsure how hackers stole Azure Active Directory signing key. This is following up on last week's email breach story. An inactive Microsoft account consumer signing key was allegedly used by Chinese hackers to breach the Exchange Online and Azure Active Directory accounts of 24 organizations, including government agencies, using a stolen Azure AD enterprise signing key. Microsoft stated the method by which the actor acquired the key is a matter of ongoing investigation. And Microsoft admitted that was according to a new advisory they published last week. So, Dimitri, seems that the threat actors have moved on since Microsoft invalidated the signing keys. But these types of incidents show that even the biggest organizations are prone to creative attacks. Do you see this as a good news story, seeing that no major damage seems to have been caused, or still a cause for concern?
Yeah, this is a very big cause for concern, of course. And you see these large organizations getting bigger and bigger all the time. And I think this week Microsoft announced that they are moving into the SSE and SASE area as well with Entra. So now you want to put all your eggs in their basket. That it's a big concern actually. So I think in the first place, it's horrible enough to keep. It's difficult enough to keep the spies at bay, the Chinese spies. We don't need Microsoft to lose our keys as well. So, in this, I think example is bring your own key and keep your own key. Is very important. Key management is together with encryption. I think one of the things that we should look into more, rigidly. Have more data sovereignty, for example. Don't leave your keys laying about at the supplier side, for example. So it's good to use those big cloud providers, but we need to have need to be the master of our own data.
All right, our next story here, a little bit related to what we were just talking about. JumpCloud breached by an APT. Last week, we reported that the enterprise software company JumpCloud reset all customer API keys and what referred to as an ongoing incident, obviously resetting the keys speaking to the severity of that. And now the company has disclosed a state-backed threat group breached its systems. It discovered the incident on June 27th, finding that the attackers gained access a week prior with a spear phishing attack. The company discovered unusual activity in the commands framework for a small set of customers, but said it found no evidence the attack impacted any customers. JumpCloud released indicators of compromise for the incident to better allow partners to secure their networks. Dimitri, with the recognition that it was the result of a spear phishing attack, the question, I guess, then becomes, with AI becoming more dominant in all areas of life, or at least where we're trying to see where it fits in, not just threat actors, how can we use, large language models, AI, ML, to better identify spear phishing and social engineering? Is that going to be part of the solution here?
I think that's definitely going to be part of the solution. We are already using machine learning and anomaly detection AI. But in this particular case, I wonder if that would have helped because, as I understood, it was the Lazarus group from North Korea that was aiming for the targets. It was spear phishing, so probably they did some investigation, and they're all about getting the crypto coins.
Yeah.
It's very, I mean, targeted from their point of view, and I don't think they needed any AI to do that. So yeah, you would still have the old craftsmanship attacks going on, especially in the cryptocurrency world.
Yeah, when it comes to being so targeted by a group that has the time, the resources, and the inclination to
State
focus on
sponsored,
one. Yeah, it's you can add to the toolkit and make it harder, but that's still always going to be a tough ticket. I feel like no matter what tools we put out there, for sure.
definitely.
All right, before I move on, now a word from our sponsor, Open VPN. According to Oriol Hernan Villalba Pinzetta, a system administrator with SEDEX Cybersecurity and IT department, the pandemic meant we could not come to the office and we needed to facilitate access to our local resources. Cloud Connexa was really easy and fast to set up. Two things we really needed in that moment. Learn more about OpenVPN in the show notes to this episode. All right, this next story got a lot of play this week in the news. So, Dimitri, definitely want your take on it. Typos leaking military emails. This comes from the Financial Times, and they reported that a common domain typo has implications for the U.S. military. It's because the .mil domain used by the military often gets typed as .ml. That's the country code for the West African country Mali. This isn't theoretical either. The Dutch entrepreneur managing the domain, Johannes Zubier, set up a system to catch misdirected military emails to that .ml address. Since January, this captured over 117,000 emails, and those emails included very sensitive information, things like medical records, identity documents, military base photos, military itineraries, down to like room numbers that people were in. A lot of stuff in there. Zubier's contract to manage the domain expired this week, so Mali officials could now theoretically access misdirected emails if they set up a similar system. So, Dimitri, I'm just curious here. We have the situation here, kind of two interesting issues. First, the idea of misspelled emails. We've seen typo squatting attacks for years. This is kind of almost coming at it from the other direction here, just kind of taking advantage of typos. But also the issue that these emails can be collected and abused with those with the insight to do so. I'm curious what your take on this.
This is a very interesting story, I think. First of all, because the Department of Defense did not take proper action for at least a decade. So why did they continue to leak, to have all those emails sent to a rogue email server? And then this guy from Amsterdam, we all know him, Joost Zubier. He's a serial internet entrepreneur, and so he agreed, I think, 15 years ago or something, that he could manage these top-level country domains for Mali, for example, for the Central African Republic, for Gabon, and also for Tokelau, and that's where it gets shady. So Tokelau is the extension TK, and actually it's the sewer of the internet, because it's widely misused for spam campaigns, for setting up CNC servers, and it's been going on for also more than a decade. And now this particular guy, this entrepreneur, between brackets, he's being sued by Meta for $500 million. So this story hasn't ended yet, and if you combine those two things, this is actually a very shady operation, and the Department of Defense didn't take any proper action. Then I will return the question is, why didn't they catch this guy, and why did they let him leak highly classified documents for so long, or catch highly classified documents for so long? So is this an asset or an operator of some intelligence agency?
Yeah, it's what was been fascinating to me outside of Zubier's role in all of this is it kind of combines two things we always see on the show, right? We have it's almost the insider threat problem, right, of the typo. Of people leaking information and not even realizing it, and then on the other end, it becomes almost a third-party vendor risk thing where people outside of DoD, even after they started blocking the .ml addresses inside DoD, sending in that information. What, I know depending on the classification, they had trusted communication systems, but kind of coming at it from both ends of as a security issue, right? So even after DoD theoretically could have done what they could have done on their end, they still have to realize like these typos exist for people sending stuff to us as well. So
And
it's endlessly fascinating.
endlessly, and then you have your very expensive XDR, your MDR,
Yep.
your SOC seams, your DLP systems, and they still have people that mistype things.
Humans are undefeated in terms of being a security liability.
Exactly.
Shout out humanity. Keep on going. Our next story here, U.S. government launches IoT security labeling program. The Biden administration launched its long-awaited U.S. Cyber Trust Mark program, which aims to protect Americans from security risk associated with Internet of Things devices. The criteria were established by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. We know them as good old NIST. So far, the standards call for strong and unique default passwords, protection for data at rest and in transit, providing regular security updates, and having built-in incident detection capabilities. The Cyber Trust Mark labeling system would take the form of a distinct shield logo. There's also a QR code element to kind of check for ongoing auditing, which will appear on the product that meets established cybersecurity criteria. So, Dimitri, the Biden administration seems to be working hard, kind of across a lot of different angles to address cybersecurity concerns, going across different agencies and regulations. This one's very much consumer centric. Cyber Trust Mark looks like it would fit in well with other types of certifications. Do you feel that in this age, such a program would be, I guess, prone to abuse in some way? We've seen Twitter blue check marks, for example, used to kind of game systems. Could we see this as well on the consumer side?
Yeah, definitely. I think every system that you set up is prone for misuse. But on the other side, it's I think very needed. Sometimes we look at Biden with envy. He issues an executive order, and everyone is running, to do their jobs, especially in the critical infrastructure area. But we did the same in Europe. In 2019, we had the Cybersecurity Act. And now we see certification schemes popping up for cloud, for example. That's the first one. And this week we had the Cyber Resilience Act that was agreed upon by all the European member states. And that will also be all about, keeping IT, IoT, and software systems safe and have them certified or self-assessment being done. People will try to fake it, but we need legislation. I think that's clear.
Yeah, definitely. And it feels like this is one of the, for the longest time, IoT just seemed like the Wild West. We had so many white label makers out there that were just would sell a system on a chip to anybody. And yeah, it did work, but the default password was baked in and just horrible. So you didn't know where anything was going. And it feels like you're right. And the UK has had similar legislation as well, that this is hopefully bringing that realization that, hey, we need to have some sort of standards if these are going to be living in people's and organizations' homes, for years and years, that there's some expectation of basic security guidelines, right?
Exactly.
All right, our next story here, renewable technologies could pose a risk to U.S. electrical grid. At a congressional hearing on Tuesday this week, former Assistant Secretary of Defense Paul Stockton warned that inverters that underpin solar and wind energy storage systems present potential hacking risks. Inverters convert DC electricity generated by solar panels into AC that can be used by the electrical grid. Stockton said inverters are a major point of weakness since the equipment is digitally native and because China is a major manufacturer of many of those devices. While inverters currently only account for roughly 14% of total electricity generation, the threat vector is expected to expand in the coming years as hopefully we get more solar capacity. Dimitri, this is a new age of, I guess, a new variation on an old threat. We've had discarded inverters playing the role currently held by, I don't know, unpatched legacy software, for an example. I'm curious, do you see this as a genuine concern, or, the energy industry is not uninterested in the renewable sector? There's a lot of interest groups in there. Is this FUD, or do you see this as a genuine concern?
Well, I wouldn't exclude some people use it as FUD, but this is absolutely a legitimate concern. We are heavily investing all over Europe in solar panels and in converters. And most of them are reliant on Chinese technology behind it, not only baked in, but also the backends. I think the European Commission recently also proposed a Net Zero Industry Act. And this allows European governments to heavily subsidize local technology initiatives in this green energy development area. So I think it's very necessary to be a little bit less dependent on Chinese, but also American providers, and have some European solutions at hand.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, having kind of domestic solutions out there, or at least closer to your own supply chain, right, are going to be critical for these kind
Exactly.
of things. So yeah, for sure. Before we get out of here, I wanted to thank all of our commenters that we had in our live stream today. I had one comment here from David Cross, kind of breaking news here. He says more and more details are coming out about the Microsoft AD key theft. So kind of breaking as we were prepping for the show today, and he says Wiz published something about this morning. So we'll be, of course, be following that up on cybersecurity headlines as more details come out. So make sure, if you're just watching the live stream, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast to get all that. Before we get out of here, Dimitri, was there any story that was a thumbs up or an eye roller here for you? And what was it?
I think this week the passing of Kevin Mitnick was an eye roller for all of us. So I think his family and friends are in our thoughts and prayers. And the cybersecurity icon has left us. So
Yeah, definitely. And talk about someone who has raised awareness for a lot of things. Obviously, just kind of an icon in the cybersecurity field. So yes, rest in power, Kevin Mitnick, and your name will live on. Before we get out of here, also, I want to thank you, Dimitri, so much for being on the show, for having the great takes, bring in that European perspective that we always need here on the CISO series and on the Week in Review. Where can people find you online if they are so inclined?
I think mainly on LinkedIn.
All right, we'll have a link to that in the show notes. And is Dutch Railways hiring?
Oh yeah, definitely. So can we share a link in the?
We will have a link to the postings in the show notes for sure. Yeah, if you have some open positions, yeah, always love to share the love and share some openings.
We need some new cyber people.
Excellent. So we will have all of that in our show notes. Thanks also to our sponsor, Open VPN, secure access and network connectivity reimagined. Thanks to everyone that was watching the live stream. Truly appreciate all the comments. Remember, we are on YouTube, so if you're listening to this later, you can join us 3:30 p.m. Eastern every single week. Get in on the conversation. We love to see you. Remember, you can also join us next Friday for Super Cyber Friday, where our topic will be hacking bad permissions, an hour of critical thinking about the domino effect of unknown access settings. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Week in Review show. Can't wait to get some more expert commentary on the news of the week. And if you need your daily news fix, you can get it through cybersecurity headlines every single day. Give us about 6 minutes. We'll get you all caught up. Until the next time we meet, I am Rich Stroffolino, reminding you to have a super sparkly day.
Cybersecurity headlines are available every weekday. Head to CISOSeries.com for the full stories behind the headlines.